Hello and welcome to part 3 of the Jedi Archive. In this video I will be going over the Han Solo Trilogy. Han Solo Trilogy was written by A.C. Crispin and released in 1997 and 1998. The series takes place around 10 years before A New Hope, leading right up to the point where you're introduced to Han Solo for the first time in A New Hope. The first book in the series details Solo's childhood years aboard the pirate vessel the Trader's Luck, where he was used in various scams overseen by the ship's captain, Garrus Shrike. Befriending a Wookiee cook named Dulana, Solo plotted his escape from the ship to the planet Lesia, where he got work as one of the few pilots able to navigate the planet's harsh environment. Working for a clan of religious zealots with ties to the Hutts, Solo, under the false name of Vic Drago, ran spice back and forth from Lesia. Fearing for their shipments, the priests hired a Togorian bodyguard named Mur to protect Solo and his precious cargo. During one of their runs, he discovered that the pilgrims of the planet were used as slaves. This leads him to meet fellow Corellian Bria Theron. After finding evidence of their crimes, Solo convinced both Bria and Mur that the priests were evil, who was one of the many pilgrims somewhere in another colony. After finding her and blowing up one of the biggest spice refineries on the planet, they made their escape to Dogoria, Mur's homeworld, where he married his mate. Han also began developing feelings for Bria. Returning to Corellia, Han was introduced to Bria's parents, who recognized Han as a pod racer from years prior. After the meeting, Han and Bria headed to Coruscant, where they pawned some of the priests' belongings that they stole from Lesia. Han applied for the Imperial Academy. While on Coruscant, Bria ran off, still fighting her pilgrim indoctrination, and leaving Han to fend off Garrus Shrike, who had tracked Solo down after his escape from his ship. Shrike was killed by a bounty hunter, sent by the priests to catch him and return him to Lesia, but before he could take Solo back, the hunter himself was killed. After this ordeal, Solo realizes his life will never be quiet. Having been discharged from the Imperial Navy, Han seeks out work, all while being followed around by a Wookiee who claims to have given Han a life debt. Han and Chewbacca make their way to Nar Shaddaa, where they meet up with Mako Spince, one of Solo's old Navy classmates. With Spince's help, Solo finds a home on the Smuggler's Moon and starts a career with Jabba the Hutt. Impressed with his experience, the Hutts hire Solo to smuggle spice across the galaxy, one assignment leading him through the Kessel Run, which he completes in record time. Unbeknownst to Solo, the Hutts he works for are planning a power grab. Still wanting Solo to answer for his missteps on Lesia, the priests hire Boba Fett to hunt down Solo. While living on Nar Shaddaa, Han begins a relationship with a magician named Avery, with himself and Chewbacca joining her on her tour as stagehands. While on tour, Boba Fett caught up with him, only to be stopped by Lando Calrissian, who is also looking for Han, since he is the best pilot around, and wants him to teach him how to be a good pilot. Having gained a new friend, Han was told he could take any ship from Lando's used lot on Nar Shaddaa. An old YT-1300 catches his eye, but Lando tells him that is his ship. So Han settles for a beaten-up freighter which he calls the Bria. As Han helps his new friends, the Hutts of Lesia make a bid for power. Meanwhile, rebel activity soared throughout the galaxy, causing Emperor Palpatine to target Hutt space to make an example of it. Desperate to prevent the Empire destroying their interests, Jabba selects Solo to visit the local Moff. Upon meeting the Moff, Han found Bria with him. Upset, Han left the assignment incomplete. Bria, however, was working undercover for the Corellian Resistance and spying on the Moff. His trip to the Moff, however, was not in vain, since Solo discovered that Admiral Greelinx would be commanding an attack force against Nar Shaddaa. Bribing the Admiral with precious gems, Solo received his battle plans, allowing the smugglers to defend Nar Shaddaa. After a long battle, the smugglers emerged victorious, prompting Solo to deliver Greelinx his bribe. Arriving at the Admiral's quarters, Solo witnesses Darth Vader kill the corrupt Admiral. Escaping, Han returned to his life of smuggling. Going with Lando to the Sabacc tournament on Cloud City, he manages to win the Millennium Falcon from his friend. Having won the Millennium Falcon from Lando, Han began upgrading the freighter to be the ultimate smuggling vessel. Once returning to Nar Shaddaa, he is reunited with Bria, who now works for the Rebel Alliance. Reluctantly, he agrees to help her with a full-on attack on the colonies of Lesia to free the slaves. With Lando's help, Han and Chewie complete their mission, only to be betrayed by Bria and her troops. Stripped of their valuables and branded a traitor on Nar Shaddaa, Solo and Chewie took up smuggling work again for Jabba. However, on a standard run, they are forced to dump their cargo when an Imperial patrol comes by, meaning they owed compensation to Jabba. Meanwhile, Bria leads an Imperial attack, where her troops transport the plans of the Death Star to Princess Leia aboard the Tantive 4. Unfortunately, Bria and all her troops are killed, but successfully transmit the plans before dying. On Tatooine, Solo tries to arrange a meeting with Jabba, but to no avail. Instead, he was harassed by bounty hunters all working for Jabba, looking for his payment. While looking for any card games he might be able to swindle out of money, he runs into Dash Rendar. During this encounter, Boba Fett arrives, delivering the news that Bria died. He also says that Greedo is looking for him. Going to the Mos Eisley Cantina, Solo meets with Ben Kenobi and Luke Skywalker, who are looking for passage to the Alderaan system. So this series is probably the one that could be adapted pretty much verbatim into the new canon, considering that there is actually a Han Solo movie being made right at this moment. They're actually in the middle of casting Han Solo and the actors who will play, I guess, major roles and everything. But yeah, it could definitely work, especially since they're doing it just before A New Hope and everything, which is when this series is set. It's set over a span of 10 years before A New Hope, leading up to the moment we see Han Solo in A New Hope. So they could definitely go with this, or at least like the general storyline maybe of like him being on Nar Shaddaa and being like a smuggler and everything, and then there's like some big event that he sort of reluctantly helps out at and everything, like maybe the Battle of Nar Shaddaa or something. And they could also include someone like Bria in this as well, as sort of like a love interest that does die, or it does stay around. And also we also have in the Star Wars comics at the moment Sana Solo, quote unquote, which she is someone who sort of swindled Han into marrying, quote unquote, her for a job and everything, and she pretended to be his wife in front of Leia and everything. So like she could easily take up the Bria role in this as well, and that'd be pretty cool, like someone else from the comics coming in, since we've already had some people come in from like the novels and everything. We've had Jessica Parver and Snap Wexley from The Force Awakens be in Force Awakens, but before that they were in some books as well. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see exactly what they do with it, whether they touch on some of the old canon stuff. Like this is one of my favorite series of the old canon. Is really brilliantly written by AC Crispin and shows characters as kind of like younger versions of themselves, but they're recognizable. You know, you're like, oh, that's definitely how Lando would react in that situation, or that's definitely how Han would react in that situation and everything. And it also shows you how they become more like the characters we see in the movie, like how Han's sort of like that cocky, you know, carefree type of guy who's always cynical and everything. He wasn't always like that, and it shows like his character development in through these 3 books. So yeah, I could definitely see this series being a inspiration to the Han Solo movie. I don't know what Chris Miller and Phil Lord have planned for this movie. I know obviously it's set between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, so it could, you know, the Rebels characters could appear. We don't know at this point, but it's fun to speculate, and yeah, I really hope this series is brought back into canon, or parts of it are. So that's it for section 3 of Jedi Archives. Again, leave your comments below about what you think of the series, if you've read it, if you haven't read it, if you're going to read it, and like what you would like to see. I've got some stuff coming up, so keep an eye out for that. But yeah, and go check out my Star Wars Facebook page, Star Wars Cinematic Galaxy. Lots of cool news happening over there, and everything keeps you up to date with what's going on in the Star Wars universe.